clock above the cigarette rack had been stuck at 3:07 a.m. for hours. Evan noticed it sometime after the rain stopped. He couldn't say exactly when, only that the silence had changed. The store always had noise. Coolers humming, fluorescents buzzing, the soft tick of the wall clock, but now the ticking was gone. The second hand rested between marks, frozen mid-twitch, while the red digital display beneath it glowed 3:07 with stubborn insistence. Outside, time still moved. Headlights slid past the windows. A freight train wailed somewhere beyond the trees, its sound stretching and thinning as it traveled. Evan's phone said 4:41 a.m. The receipt printer stamped the correct date and time. His wristwatch advanced obediently, minute by minute. Only the clock refused. The store felt colder after he noticed. Not sharply cold, just a damp chill that seeped through his shoes and settled in his knees. The air smelled wrong too, metallic and stale, like a room that hadn't been opened in years. Evan rubbed his arms and told himself it was just fatigue. Night shifts warped your senses. Everyone knew that. Still, he kept glancing up. At 3:07, the fluorescent lights flickered. Not enough to draw attention, just a brief dimming, as if someone had brushed a finger across a dimmer switch that didn't exist. The glass on the coffee warmer clicked softly, contracting. Somewhere in the ceiling, something shifted with a dry, papery sound. Evan walked to the back hallway and opened the restroom door. The mirror reflected him a half-second late. He blinked, leaned closer. The delay vanished. When he turned back toward the store, he felt watched. Not from the aisles, but from above, near the clock. A customer came in at 5:12. A man in a rain-dark jacket, boots tracking mud across the tile. He smelled like wet leaves and cold air. Evan rang him up automatically. Gas, coffee, a pack of gum. The man kept glancing at the clock. "Is it broken?" he asked. "Yeah," Evan said. "Been meaning to fix it." The man frowned. "It's always that time." Evan paused. "You mean tonight?" The man's eyes lingered on 3:07. "No," he said, and left without another word. After that, the store felt thinner. Sounds didn't carry the way they should. When Evan coughed, the noise seemed to vanish before it reached the walls. The aisles looked longer, stretching subtly when he wasn't focusing on them. The reflections in the windows lagged again, just enough to be unsettling. At 6:03, the automatic doors opened by themselves. No one came in. Cold air spilled across the floor, crawling like fog around Evan's ankles. He stepped toward the entrance and the doors slid shut, trapping the cold inside. Outside, dawn should have been breaking, but the sky was a deep, lightless gray, neither night nor morning. The clock still read 3:07. That's when Evan realized the security monitors had frozen too. Every camera showed the same thing. Empty aisles, perfect and still like photographs. Except one feed, the one pointed at the counter, showed Evan standing there, staring up at the clock. Except the Evan on the screen wasn't blinking. His mouth moved, just slightly, forming a shape that took Evan a second to recognize. "Stay." The lights flickered harder this time. The hum deepened into a low, pulsing throb that Evan felt in his chest. The air grew heavier, pressing down on his shoulders. He backed away from the counter and bumped into the chip rack. The metal rattled, but the sound arrived late, stretched and distorted. A memory surfaced unbidden. His first night on the job, the manager pointing at the clock and laughing. "Things been busted since before I got here," she'd said. "Stops at 3:07 sometimes. Don't worry about it. Just means the night's not done with you yet." The doors opened again. Someone stood outside now, barely visible through the glass. A shape with too many angles, its outline stuttering like a bad frame rate. When it raised its head, Evan saw a face that looked unfinished. Features smoothed and blurred, eyes like dark smudges. The clock clicked. Not a tick, a snap. Suddenly, Evan understood. 3:07 wasn't a time. It was a place. A thin fold in the night where things got stuck. Unfinished conversations, unslept hours, people who didn't quite make it to morning. The store wasn't open 24 hours. It was open here, The thing outside pressed its hand to the glass. Frost bloomed outward in branching veins. On the monitors, the other Evan smiled wider than a human mouth should allow. The clock began to move. Not forward, backward. The numbers blurred, spiraling inward, dragging the light with them. Evan felt himself stretching, thinning, pulled toward that fixed point he'd been orbiting all night. His phone clattered to the floor, its screen going black. The last thing Evan heard was the tick returning. Steady, patient. When the morning clerk arrived, the store was quiet, normal. Sunlight spilled across the floor. The clock above the cigarettes read 8:12 a.m., ticking happily along. She frowned at the counter. "Ha!" she muttered. "Didn't know we hired someone for nights." The security monitor showed an empty store, except for the clock, which paused for just a moment and flickered to 3:07 a.m. The cat at aisle 3. A stray cat wandered in, stared at the clerk, and said, "Don't stay here." It was the sort of night where the rain seemed to smear the fluorescent lights into halos, and the store smelled faintly of damp cardboard and burnt coffee. Marco had been working the graveyard shift at the 24-hour Quick Mart for nearly 6 months, but tonight felt different. The bell over the door had chimed just before midnight, a sharp, brittle sound that cut through the low hum of the refrigerators. At first, he thought it was just another customer seeking snacks or cigarettes, but the figure in the doorway was small, lithe, and black. A cat. A wet, black cat with fur that clung in thin ribbons. Its eyes were large, amber, and unblinking. "Don't stay here," it said, its voice low and almost wet, like it had swallowed a storm. Marco froze. The words didn't echo. They didn't carry a meow or hiss. Just plain English, sharp and urgent. He blinked, and the cat's gaze didn't waver. Right," he muttered, stepping back toward the counter. His hand hovered over the cash register as if touching it might anchor reality. The cat padded further inside, its movements eerily smooth, like it was gliding over the linoleum. The rain tapped in uneven rhythms against the glass, but somehow the store had grown quieter, as if the world outside had stopped entirely. The fluorescent lights flickered, and Marco noticed the air had chilled. He could see his breath, curling thin as smoke. I think you should leave," Marco said, though his voice trembled. The cat tilted its head, ears flicking like a warning. "Don't stay here," it repeated. This time, the words lingered, vibrating in the air. Marco's phone buzzed in his pocket, but when he checked it, the screen was blank. No notifications, no missed calls. The clock above the snack aisle blinked erratically. 11 hours 61 minutes. He frowned. That wasn't possible. He turned to the aisles. Everything looked the same. Well-stocked shelves, rows of canned beans, chips in bright packaging. But there was something off. The fluorescent lights hummed differently, casting shadows that didn't match the shapes of the objects. For a fleeting second, he swore a shelf of soda rippled, like it was water. "Hello?" he called, more to himself than anyone else. The cat's eyes glowed in the dim light. A memory flickered at the edge of his mind. The town had a legend about this very store. Years ago, a night clerk named Rosa had vanished without a trace. They'd found the store closed the next morning, lights still flickering, but Rosa was gone. Customers reported hearing whispers between the aisles, footsteps when no one was there, and shadows that moved faster than any human could. Marco had dismissed it as small-town superstition, but the cat's words felt like a thread tying him to that story. A bell chimed again, though no door had opened. He glanced at the window. Rain streaked the glass, but the street outside was empty. Then he saw it, another reflection in the glass, faint but distinct. Behind him, in the aisles, a figure lingered. Not Rosa, something else. Tall, pale, its shape blurred like smoke. When he spun around, nothing was there. The cat sat at the end of aisle 3, tail curling around its paws. Its voice came again, almost softer this time. "They'll take you if you stay." Marco laughed nervously, shaking his head. "Take me? Take me where?" The air grew colder still, a creeping frost that made the edges of the linoleum shimmer. He rubbed his hands together. The reflection in the fridge glass changed. His own eyes looked hollow, darker than normal, as if someone else was staring back. Then the whispers began, barely audible at first, like the hiss of wind through a cracked window. But they grew louder, layered, overlapping. Stay, stay, stay. Panic bubbled in his chest. He backed toward the door, but the handle felt icy, sticky, as if the store itself resisted his leaving. The lights flickered violently, and the shadows in the aisles stretched and bent, leaning toward him. The whispers grew into voices, murmuring names, his name. Marco, Marco. The cat leapt onto the counter, claws clicking against the metal. Its eyes were impossibly bright. They don't like visitors, it said. Rosa stayed. Now it's your turn. Marco's vision blurred. The edges of the store wavered like heat off asphalt, then snapped into a cruel clarity. The walls were lined not with shelves but mirrors. Mirrors reflecting endless versions of him, all reaching for the door, all screaming silently. The rain outside had stopped, replaced by an unnatural, thick fog that pressed against the glass, obscuring the world beyond. He tried to run, but his feet dragged, the linoleum stretching like quicksand. Every step felt heavier. The whispers coalesced into a single phrase that crawled across his mind. Don't leave. Don't leave. The cat's gaze followed him, unwavering. You have to, it said. Its voice now sounded distant, like it came from a different place entirely. Or you'll never see the morning again. Marco lunged for the door. It yielded under his weight, spilling him into the parking lot. The air outside was normal, the rain gentle, the neon sign flickering with mundane familiarity. He turned back to the store. The door was empty. No cat, no light flicker, only the dark windows staring back at him, mirrors that reflected nothing. He told himself it had been a hallucination, exhaustion playing tricks on him. Yet when he glanced down the street, he froze. Across the road, another convenience store sat abandoned. The sign swung in the wind, and in its window, a black cat, sitting at the counter, eyes glowing amber. A whisper came from the fog, carried on the cold night air. Don't stay here. Marco's pulse raced. He realized, then, that the cat hadn't been warning him about something outside the store. It had been warning him about staying inside, staying alive in the wrong space, the wrong place. The legend hadn't ended with Rosa. It was still taking, still hungry, and now it was waiting. He turned and ran, but the fog thickened. Behind him, the faint chime of the store bell echoed, even though the Quickmart was blocks away. And somewhere, a voice, soft, cruel, and almost pleased, murmured, "Welcome to your shift."